everyone, and welcome to Unglamorous in the City with Smitha Rao. I'm your host, and I am so thrilled to introduce you to my friend and female founder. This is Krista Parise.
Hi.
And Krista, I want to make sure I get your title. You're the owner of JNK Logistics.
I am.
So Krista, thanks so much for being here today. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Same.
Krista and I have known each other for a bit of time. We've worked together. We've done some media stuff together. And now, Krista, you get to tell everyone about your story and just all of the amazing things that you're doing in the New York City area.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. So let's get right into it. Can you tell, for anyone listening and watching, a little bit more about who you are, what you do, more about your company, which is pretty amazing. I love this story. I know it, of course, and I love it. So please tell my audience a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I am the owner of JNK Logistics. So we launched my logistics company in 2021. So right after COVID, a little bit of a chaotic time with deliveries. Everybody wanted everything sent to their home. It is out of New Jersey, but we work within New York City, which is exciting. We actually work in my hometown. So, we're in an area where I see a lot of people that I grew up with. We're touching base with the schools that I went to. So, very close to home for me. And it's something that I value. I am a mom. So I have a son. His name is Sal, and he's 7. He's my little bestie. And I, love everything about the business that I'm in because I have a lot of flexibility to spend a lot of time with him. Something that, my parents didn't really have when I was growing up. So definitely excited that I am in a career path where I get to spend a lot of time with him. And I'm also a dog mom. So I have 5 dogs. I have 4 mini dachshunds. And then I have 1 white little fluffy dog. So that's a very big deal. And I have an amazing partner. His name is John. And we do, the business together. And very blessed in that aspect.
Okay, I love that. I did not know that you have 5 dogs.
Yes.
On top of a son, a partner, a business. I mean, that's incredible.
Yes, a lot. They are definitely like the fun and spontaneity of my day. They are sassy and they're just so much fun to come home to. They're a good time. Mini dachshunds are just, they're definitely top breed in my opinion.
That's amazing. So you have your hands full.
I do.
To say the least.
I do, but I like that. I am definitely not a calm downtime person. I have to be busy. I like being busy. I like having my plate full and then a whole nother plate full. I like that. I operate like that. I feel like I am my best version of myself when I'm busy. So I definitely enjoy the chaos.
Okay, I love that. I've never heard that and I like that. I like having my plate full and I love having another plate full. That's great, Krista. And clearly by that, and I mean, I just think it's so amazing and we're going to, of course, get to this. But my first question is just how do you make all of that work?
So I kind of think of it in a way that we don't have a choice, right? So I have to wake up, my son has to go to school, the dogs have to get fed. Work has to get done. So I think that mentality makes it to where there's really not an option for me, right? Like I know the first thing that I have to do when I get up is systematically start getting everything that has a time frame that's earlier in the day done. And then we have to start working from there, right? So my schedule basically goes by what's important at that time frame. So in the morning, it's dedicated to getting my son out of the house, getting the dog set up for the day. And then I start with everything else. Also, I have a very supportive partner, so he is a big part of why all of that works as well.
And you mentioned you guys work on the business together too.
We do.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So we actually met at work and then our relationship grew over time. I was going through a divorce. So my son's father and I were separated and he kind of stepped in and was taking over a lot of responsibilities at work for me and helping me be a second set of eyes, which I think that I tend to find a lot of people that I date at the workplace because I am very attracted to hardworking people. right? I think that that's just such a strong quality to have, whether it's male or female. And it's definitely attractive to see somebody step in and not only do a great job, but help your company that really is my other baby. So to see somebody care so much about my business as if it was their own was already a quality that, was attractive. And so our relationship kind of just grew in that aspect, and we started spending more time outside of work, and here we are.
And I love that. And I feel a lot of people that are listening and watching can kind of relate to that, right? That commonality that brought you together, and then seeing that he was kind of capable of entering this world, right? That you already have, and that being aligned, right? I'm sure that was a big part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, when you are a businesswoman, or even if you are younger and you just started in your field and you're really killing yourself to grow in that field or find your footing, to see other people doing the hard work as well is a draw. I mean, a lot of my female friends are the same. I met a lot of them at work, and we were just attracted to the fact that we were working really hard trying to get our lives established. And that kind of was like a very strong common factor in a lot of the relationships that I have.
I love that. And I love that you have female friends too that can relate, that have similar experiences, right? That's amazing. Is that part of your network, I assume, right? Like it's almost, I would say it takes a village. And I'm sure you have a big village.
100% I do. I have very, very strong females in my village, which is a huge thing for me. I would say, 95% of my friends are really killing it at what they do, and they all are supportive in different ways, right? I have different friends for different things. So they're not all my friends that I'm going to go out at, to dinner with or go out to a club with. They're not all my friends that I'm going to do mom things with. They're not all my friends that I'm going to go on a trip with. But they are all strong in their own lives. And so they can relate a lot to when I'm reaching out about any type of issue and give their version of advice, right? Like what works for them, which is refreshing too.
Which is refreshing. And I love what you said too, right? When you have women kind of for different, and really the podcast, right? I mean, people, who are watching have already met so many, everyone I've had on the show so far has been a friend of mine. And women so far, although I promise I have some men that are coming too. But same thing. I realized as I was kind of, going through my Rolodex, if you will, of people, I'm like, I have so many amazing female friends who have businesses, who are just doing amazing things at work, who are juggling it all like you are, right? With having children, having a career, having a partner, being a dog mom. I mean, really, that is, everything. And these women are doing it so effortlessly that, and these are like some of the reasons we have these conversations, it takes a lot, right? To be able to do this, but you do it so effortlessly that people sometimes don't realize that. And it's like, why is she finding it? Why is it so easy, right? And it's not, but it's rewarding. I think that's fair to say.
It's rewarding. I also like it. So I give a lot of respect to women who are not looking to be as aggressive in the workplace, right? I also have friends who are stay-at-home moms. I have friends who assist their husbands' businesses, and that works for them, but they're all smart and fun, and they're all doing the best that they can, and they're all still managing some form of their own life, right? Obviously you know me well enough to know that I'm a big contender of however you want to live your life, live it as long as it works for you. This works for me. I'm very work aggressive. Or career aggressive rather, I would say. I am a career aggressive woman. That really is one of my first priorities. I would actually say it's probably above my son, which you probably don't hear a lot of women say, but my career fuels my son's life.
I love what you just said, because I think that's true, right? Of course you hear, and obviously your son is, one of your most important priorities in life, but you're right. The work is what's fueling a better life and a good life for your son.
Correct. I think it would be silly to say, oh, my kid comes first. Like, of course, everybody's children come first, but his well-being really comes from the work that I'm doing. So my career is legitimately the most important thing to me, because if that's not doing well, he's not going to get everything that he likes or he needs, and then I'm not going to be a happy mama. So, work is my number one.
I love that too. I love the way you're saying it, right? Because I think if you just said it without the context, it would sound like, wait a minute. But I love the way what you're saying makes total sense, because everything you're doing is for your son. And the career is obviously, the most fundamental part of being able to give him the life that you want.
I mean, it also helps me have a sense of self, right? Like a lot of people lose a little bit of themselves when they become a mom. But work was such a thing for me before I was a mom. So it does feel good when I'm working because I kind of feel like, okay, I'm a mom, but I still have that one thing that I really loved about myself before I was a mom, and it's still strong there. So that's great for me too.
That's amazing, Krista. And that's such a good point too, right? For anyone who's listening or watching who's a working mother, it's everything you're doing is for your children, right? I mean, of course, we all like nice things. I know you do too, but it's for your child at the end of the day.
Yes.
And he's 7, you said?
Yes, he just turned 7 last week.
Oh, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Yes, he's 7, and he is also learning that like work is very important, which I value. Again, I'm not saying that he has to follow in my footsteps, but I do like him seeing, my mom really works hard. And she still makes time for me, and we live a really nice life, but that comes from the fruits of her labor. So I think, he gets it, which is great.
Which is great. And that's true. And that's good work ethic for him too, to learn, right? To say, okay, this is what mom is doing. This is how she's doing it. That's great for him too.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that there's a little bit of, a gap right now in terms of like the culture of work, right? A lot of people look at work and they think, oh, if it's not exactly what I want to do, I don't want to do it at all. Whereas, I'm kind of just like a workhorse. Like, hey, we just need to work. We're going to get to that point of you're going to have your dream job one day, but we need to start off at point A and just start working. So I think he sees that, and he just knows that work is always going to be a big part of our life.
Oh, I love that. See, that's so nice too. Yeah. And that's just something good to instill in him at a young age, to see it, right? Obviously, family is really important to you as well. So he kind of sees that balance and that blend of making everything work.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay. So we haven't even had to go to my questions yet, but I'm going to go here because we have a nice little roster of questions here I want to get to. So you spent years working in customer-facing roles. And looking back now, what skills from those days do you use today?
So in my current business, I have a rainbow of employees. And I know how to adjust to everybody's needs. So I think when you're customer facing, one of the biggest things that you have to learn is that different people have a different motive, right? And they also have different needs. And, I was customer facing for customer satisfaction, but I was also customer facing for sales. And you kind of have to learn how to talk to certain people in a certain way. If somebody comes in and they're used to having less technology in their business, I'm not going to throw, the idea of them going on an email and clicking a link. I might have to walk them through it a little more. And I think that translates into my employees, because when I say rainbow, I mean I have every kind of person that works for me.
And that's great. And that's great to have all the different, diversity. I mean, we're in New York, right? So of course, diversity and knowing that you're giving people an opportunity, right? That must be such a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I call my workers my kids. I mean, some of them are older than me, and I still say that they're like my kids. Maybe I sometimes I think, am I a little emotionally too roped in to a fault? But I really, really care about the people that work for me, because I look at it as it's because of them that my company is working. So we're not thriving if I don't have them there. And like I said in the beginning, it's very big for me to have a company that's working and smooth and, et cetera. But if I don't have happy employees, I'm not happy. Like, I want to always make everything the best that I can, physically in my control that I can for them.
Exactly. And you care about them, right?
I
Because
do.
they become family.
Yes.
I've heard that from a lot of business owners, that these people become your family.
They do.
And you care, and you know about them. You know their birthdays, their personal lives, you know their anniversaries. Like, all the things about these people. And so, it's more than just a job, right? It really is in that sense, especially I think when you're a business owner and you have people that are relying on you. And Krista, you have a lot of employees.
I do. We fluctuate between anywhere from 75. I've gone up to 150 at one point. So depending on the season, we fluctuate, but I know all of their names, and I know every single one of them, and I know where they're coming from and how they're getting there. And, all their scheduling is done by me, because I want them to have like the best work-life balance. I don't let any other manager handle that. So I always want to make sure there's, a healthy work-life balance there. They're getting the days that they need. And I always tell them, I don't need to know why you need off. I want you to live your best life. As long as everything at work is taken care of, you go enjoy.
I love that. And it's funny, this podcast is called Unglamorous, and I'm hearing my phone keep binging, and I told us before we started recording, I told Krista, I was like, make sure you put your phone on silent. This is a very unglamorous moment, so I figured I'd call it out, because I'm sure people can hear it's like it keeps binging, and I'm like, see, but it's even with work, right? It's when you're with your employees, I'm sure that things come up that are unexpected, and you just have to kind of roll with it. So
Constantly.
As a business owner, and that's a silly example, but as a business owner, when things like that happen, when things maybe don't go right, I mean, how do you handle that as a leader?
So I always, first of all, I stand by the perseverance. That is, I think I should get it tattooed on me. I am the biggest cheerleader of perseverance. There is always going to be problems in every industry, in every field, at every level. So we know there's going to be an issue, right? We cannot go into any day waking up thinking, this is going to be the perfect day. It's great if that happens, but that's not realistic. And I think that us knowing that there's things that could go on, at this point, I kind of have it down pat in knowing what could go on. So I have everything kind of set up with a backup plan. But in the beginning, if it wasn't working properly, I would be on my toes and very involved. I'm also always close by. And if I'm not close by, I have somebody who I trust close by. I think that's the key. Your team that stands behind you, like whether it's your management team, any type of support team that you have, they have to be close by, and you really have to trust them and kind of let the reins go.
100%. And it's the trust,
Yep.
right? You have to have trust, because at the end of the day, I mean, I've heard from a lot of leaders who say things something like, I want to hire people that are as good or even better than me, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to trust these people to do the job, right? So they have to at least be at your level, if not more. And I think that is so crucial to any successful business owner.
I ask for feedback often. So most of my management team is younger than me, which is fine, because I think that they have a lot of fresh outlooks on a lot of the projects that we have going on, a lot of the work we do. And I ask them, what could be done differently with this? What could have been done better? What do you suggest? Is there a supply that I could buy that would make it better for you? I ask my employees all the time, is there anything that I could get for you guys that would make it easier? I have a separate email inbox set up so they could even anonymously email if they wanted to where the other managers aren't seeing anything, and let me know how I can make it better for them. So I think also being open to feedback from your team is huge. You have to listen to the people that work for you.
You do. And it's kind of that mutual, right? Mutual beneficial. Of course, you're the boss and you are the one calling the shots. But I'm sure part of being successful in this role is also listening to what other people have ideas and being open to other ideas.
Yes.
So that way it's growth.
Yes.
Right? Everything is growth in life.
Yes. Growth. And I don't even let them call me boss. I always tell them I'm like your mentor. I don't want them to think that I'm just this authoritative figure that's just going to come down on them and tell them, no, this is wrong. I try to explain to them, we have to work on this and do that. But also a lot of the processes that I put in place are setting them up to be successful in any job that they go to.
And it's funny, I saw that even earlier today because there was somebody who was asking, if she could have some mentorship from us. And Krista jumped right in and was like, absolutely, I'll give you my number. And I saw that. That just makes me so happy to see that. And we were talking about this too. There is space for everyone. Everyone. It is a big city. It is a big world. There is space for everyone. And there's no reason, it doesn't matter your industry. And I know you feel passionately about this too. There's no reason to put anyone else down.
Ever.
You should, especially as women, right? We should put people up. And I saw that today, and I just love seeing things like that when I see my friends who are, who are encouraging other people who are saying, hey, I'll come in, I'll help you. I saw that today, Krista, and I want to call that out because that was such a beautiful thing to see.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think also in general, you don't know what people are going through. When I launched my business, I had literally been going through probably one of the most tumultuous periods of my life. And nobody knew, right? And then they found out, a lot of, or rather my, coworkers, et cetera, found out after the fact and were like, wow, I didn't know that you had such a small child and you were in the process of moving and then you were going through a divorce. And I'm like, you're not supposed to know that. One, that's my personal life. I'm here to do a job and it's going to get done properly. But also, I really appreciated the people who showed me grace where it was needed when they didn't know what was going on. So I try to carry that out on a daily basis. I'm sure, I'm not always my best version every day. I'm not perfect, but I do try.
Yeah. And you know what? You've talked about divorce, and I think that's it's just so nice for people to hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure, someone listening or watching this is definitely going through that now. Any advice you have for whether it's a man or woman, right? Just going through divorce with children is tough. Just what is advice?
So my parents were divorced when I was very young. I think I was like 15 or 16 months old. Yeah. And my parents did a very good job of teaching me that just because we're not together doesn't mean we're not still a family unit. Just because we're not together doesn't mean you can't have the best version of your life. I think the theme of divorce back in the day was always you stay together for the kids, which is, in my opinion, unhealthy, because your children need to see the best versions of you, and children also need to see that their parents like and respect each other. So if you are living in a house and you are not getting along, even if you're not screaming, yelling, because my ex-husband and I have to give him his credit where credit is due. We were not screaming, yelling, fighting people. We just were very different. We were too different. And that's okay. And I think because we got divorced when my son was so young, he understands that we're not together. He understands that we still communicate on the phone. He sees us in like a good place. And I think that that's much healthier for my son to grow up seeing both of his parents happy. We're communicating, we're getting along, we're successful, and that he's still so important to us, right? And then I added another person who's obsessed with him too. So now he has a bonus dad who adores him.
See, and what you just described is exactly the way it should be,
yes.
Right? And I understand there's a lot of circumstances, to anyone who's maybe listening or watching, like there's a lot of circumstances. I want to acknowledge that, but I think the maturity and just the respect that you have when you talk about your ex is something very commendable. I think that's very amazing that you have that, because that, at the end of the day, that's going to be a better thing for your son.
Correct.
Right? And I'm sure that is really obviously, an attitude like that is obviously thinking of the son first over yourself, right? And that I think is that is what it should be. And again, I don't want to say it's easy or anything, but that is just that is a really beautiful thing to hear.
Listen, divorce is hard in general. You have a vision in your head of what your life is looking like. You're with someone who you have a child with, right? You created a whole nother human. Even if you don't have a child, if you're going through a divorce, it throws a wrench into what you predicted your life was going to be. So I think in general, that's the main thing that's hard, right? Because now you're shifting everything and then you have to worry about living spaces, etc. But I think that the culture shift has to swing and that people need to let go of the hate, right? I don't want to walk around hating my ex-husband. It doesn't serve either of us. It doesn't serve him. It doesn't serve me. It's not going to make my son love me more. We're cool. I would say, I wouldn't say like we're friends, but he knows if he needs something, he could call on me and vice versa. And we communicate very civilly. And I don't think it would have been healthy for me to walk around with such ill feelings towards somebody, especially somebody you have a child with.
Right. And you said something that I think is great too. You guys are still a family unit.
Correct.
It's not the traditional family, right? And it's not to your point, you get married. Nobody gets married to get divorced, right? So it's not in that same way, but you're still a family. And I think that instilling that in your son is so important.
Yeah. Hot take too. I don't believe that legal marriage should be a thing anymore. I think, especially as being like an entrepreneur, most women were legally getting married. Like, I believe in the union. I believe in a ceremony. I believe in a party. You're celebrating a life accomplishment. You met someone who's your partner forever, right? If everything works out. But I just don't see any legal benefit to getting married anymore. I think that was the more stressful part, was going through lawyers. And I think the lawyers also were trying to make us not like each other more so than we already had ill feelings about each other, right? Like, I almost wish we didn't get lawyers and we were able to just use a mediator and just call it a day. But there was really no legal benefit to me getting married. And I think, if anything, it just made it a harder process to separate.
I think that's so smart. That is a hot take, but I really like it because I feel like that's true. And it's also, I mean, you are a successful woman. So that part of it, you're like, as long as we figure out with the, childcare,
right?
I'm sure you were fine. You're like, that for
Correct.
me is it, right?
Yeah.
So I agree. And you're right. It does complicate it.
Right.
Too. And especially you hear these stories of people that stay together for the sake of the kids, what you were saying. And I think a part of that is also the financial implications, because a lot of people, when they get together, especially if they marry when they're younger or at least in their 20s, may not have the same, definitely don't have the same means they have when they're in their 40s or their 50s.
Correct.
And I've seen that complicate people who are like, oh, I don't want to lose a lot of money, right? If there's no prenup involved, that's messy. So, yeah.
It's messy. And also, again, with the foresight, I don't think that, let's say you meet somebody when you're 25 and then you start a company and it's a startup and it's not that successful and nobody's really thinking that anything is going to come of this. But by 35, it blows up and you're killing it. But now you've been married for a good 10 years. And a 10-year marriage is not the easiest to break up because, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the longer you're married, the harder it is to divide everything, right? So the more years you're married, the more the partner is entitled to. And again, I'm sure this varies by state, etc. But in general, if that happens, you are now in a very tricky place. And it could be that your partner didn't help you at all. Now, I think that if your partner is helping you with your business, there's other legal routes to go about that. They could have a share of the company if they invested in the company. But to just say, hey, we've been married for 10 years and you launched this business when we were together, so I'm entitled to anything, it doesn't make sense to me.
100%. You know what? That is true. I love how you explain that too, right? Because, and this is where it gets so complicated. And I do know, there are women, I think, that give up their careers.
Right.
Right? So in that case, yes, I think there has to be something specific.
Of course.
Maybe, someone gave up a career, and it could be a woman or a man. I shouldn't be sexist. It could be a woman or a man, right? Who gave up a career in order to, be able to stay at home. But you're right. What is the legal benefit?
What is it?
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I'd be curious what people who are listening or watching, I'm going to invite people to have an opinion about it, but I'd be curious what people would think about that, because that is an interesting point.
And I think that people don't realize that you could have the party without the legality part, right? Because traditionally, it was you went to City Hall and got your paperwork signed, and then you had a wedding. But let's say you go to Mexico and you go to Cancun and you get married there. You're not legally married until you come back and you sign the certificate in City Hall. So, people do it and then they come back and sign it. And I think that we should make wedding parties a bigger thing than the legal part.
Okay, Krista, that's amazing, right? Because it's a celebration.
Exactly.
Like, to your point, you found somebody, you want to spend your life with this person. That's a beautiful thing. And that is the part to celebrate.
Exactly.
It's not, I like this take.
Yeah, I also think that prenups should not be so taboo. I think prenups are great. I think that they have a bad name for themselves because people always think that it's one party telling the other party, you can't have this. But I think that, again, if you are building something from scratch, you need to have a protection involved. And also, if your partner is contributing, then they should have a fair share, but then they need to go the business route of that, not the marriage route.
And you know what? You're right. Prenup is almost a dirty word.
Yeah.
But why? Because it's protecting what you have worked so hard for.
Correct.
And that's okay. And it's also making sure that you're aligned with your partner on what happens if this situation, if this marriage doesn't work out.
You find out a lot about people when you bring up prenup. You see a lot of, squirming in your seat when you bring it up. And I think, to me, too, that would be, such a red flag. If I ever met someone who was, squirming in their seat, if I said, hey, if I ever got married again for whatever reason, which I would never get legally married again, I would have a prenup, and they were uncomfortable about that, I would be a little pressed. Why are you uncomfortable? Why can't we talk about that ahead of time? Why can't we plan that out? So, yeah, I definitely think people who are against prenups, that's a red flag.
And you know what? I agree with that too, because sadly, I've seen cases, I know people personally who have gotten married, and then the person that, they married, he or she married, was only using this person for, for a green card or to get into the country and stay, so I mean, you're right. And that person would clearly never want to sign a prenup, right? Because the intentions are unfortunately not good.
Right.
I think prenups are a great thing too. And I have a lot of successful friends, as I mentioned, and now as someone who's been working in New York for over 20 years and has grown to a certain point, right? I live by myself in a nice building in Manhattan. I mean, I can agree with what you're saying
100%.
because and I'm single. So this is not anything that I need to worry about anytime soon, but I can see why that would be definitely something that if somebody was not comfortable, it would be a big red flag.
I think I need to become like a divorce doula. I don't need to be your lawyer and your legal advice, but I think I definitely need to tell people who are contemplating a divorce, like some of the things that they should be prepared to go into and be, moral support for it. Again, thank God I had a great divorce lawyer, but my ex-husband and I were not going for blood. We really were just amicably like, all right, just like get this over with. But I have friends who have gone through horrible divorces and learned a lot about it from them. But I think, divorce is an industry, right? And like I watched it kind of unfold and I was like, oh my God, this is like way bigger than just the divorce. This is like such an industry.
It is, and you heard it here first. Yeah. If you need help with your divorce, I was like, serial entrepreneur, Krista, right? You could start a whole other LLC about helping women, or men through divorce.
Yep.
I mean, I think there's a lot, and I think, what the sad thing is when people are going through a divorce, there's so many other factors, right? Like, it's just nice to have somebody who's been through it to say, listen, I understand, I empathize. Because you're right. I mean, lawyers are great and, and all that, fine, or necessary, whatever, or maybe not necessary, however you look at it.
Yeah.
But just knowing that there's somebody there that's gone through it and says, I hear you. I understand what you're feeling, right? Like that is something that is, that is just.
Yeah, there's really
nice.
There's no money price that you could put on that when you have somebody who tells you like, hey, I get it. It sucks. It's definitely not something that you thought was going to come. But it's here and we're going to deal with it like in the best possible way. When you're talking about any type of breakup to your family or your friends, usually they will side with you, which sometimes can make you feel worse, right? Because then you're like, wow, how did I get myself into this? And did I not see this coming? But when you speak to somebody who's gone through it already and they might not be as close to you as family or friends, they could kind of say like, listen, this is nothing new. A lot of people get into relationships and sometimes it's not always, this knockdown, drag out issue, right? It's not always infidelity. It's not always lack of interest. It could just be that you guys grew apart. Who you want when you're 25 is not always who you want when you're 35. People evolve. They live in different places. They went through trauma. Something went on that flipped a switch in their head and it just made them not comfortable in the situation that they're in. And I again, like I said, I think the whole view of divorce and all that definitely has to get updated.
Right? Because times have changed.
Yes.
Right? And as a woman making money, it's not about the financial security that maybe it was 2 generations ago.
Right.
Right? Where women really didn't work.
Right.
Now it truly is about compatibility. Is this somebody, and life is short and it goes by quick.
Yeah.
And yeah, so much of what you're saying, I feel like people who are listening and watching can relate to that, right? Yeah. That it's just, and again, you heard it here first. If you need support with your divorce, Krista's got you. Because yeah, it's a lot, and it's it's nice to know that there's someone out there who can help, who understands what it's like.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's go back to my little list of questions here. I love this one. Okay, so what was the moment when you realized you wanted to build something on your own?
This is very easy. So I had my son in 2019. And I worked in automotive, and the brand I work for, I loved. I still love it. And I got very sick after I had my son. And then when I went back to work, the job just wasn't the same. I had a different view of everything, right? Because now I had a kid. And I was spending a lot of hours at work. And again, I loved work. So before, it wasn't a big thing for me, right? If I was there all day, I didn't care. But now I had this little person at home and I had just gone through something and I was separated from him when I was sick. So the time frame for me became more valuable, right? And I was like, I just wish I could get into something that gave me more freedom and also that I can, again, like mentor or coach with. Because when you work for a company, you are the worker. You're not creating, your own processes and procedures. You might help them do it according to their requirements or what their business needs are. But, you're really following a guideline of what they want. And I just needed something that allowed me to have flexibility to be near my son and also be able to use my own brain. Like at that point, I have plenty of experience in the field. And I was like, I just need to use what I have in my head and be able to have flexibility.
Oh, that's amazing. God, I feel like everything Krista's saying, I'm like, it's so good. It's so spot on. And I do like that you're very candid and thank you for being, just open. Yeah. Well, I've known that about you since the day I met you because
always.
We're both the same way.
Yeah.
I try to be pretty open. And of course, this podcast is really more about my guests than it is me, right? Because I recognize I have such a wonderful, incredible network of people in my life. But just that, being open to these conversations, I think, and that's exactly the point of this podcast for me, is trying to help other people that are listening and watching and are going through something, right? Yes. And just, having a moment, or we all go through that, right? Like, I don't know, like I've gone through like waves of sadness over certain periods of my life, right? And it can be tough and it can kind of be hard to get out of it in that moment, right? Yes. It usually passes pretty quickly, at least in my case, but it's just nice to hear these conversations, right? And know that you're not alone.
I think it also, when you go through things, you learn, right? I don't regret anything I've ever gone through in life because it made me stronger. It made me better. It made me more versatile of how to handle situations. I also really like myself. So that's always been a thing, right? Like I'm very confident and I like the person that I am. So I am not shameful about it. If you like me, you're around me. If you don't like me, I'm sorry. Like I never openly try to offend anyone, but I definitely think that there could be people who are not as comfortable with someone who's as vocal or who's as forward, right? And I get it. But there's no ill intention there.
Right. And I like what you say too. And I think that's also like, as I've gotten a little older, and I know I'm a little older than you, I have that self-worth and that self-love. And I always have been confident, right? But it's, as you get older too, you're just like that, what you just said, unapologetically, I am me. And I hope, I'm kind. I try to be, treat everyone the same way. But you're right. If you don't care for me, or if there's an issue, or if there's something, it's not a reflection of me. And I think when I was younger, a lot of us, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, a lot of us are people pleasers.
Of course.
When we're younger, especially. And I think as women, I just think, I think a lot of us are people pleasers. And so then you kind of want to get to the bottom of it. Why does, Sally not like me? What happened? Right. And as you get a little older, you're like, well, as long as I've done everything and treated this person with kindness and respect, it's not on me anymore.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I think everybody has their own motives. Everybody has things going on in their life. I can't please everybody. I wouldn't be successful if I pleased everyone. It wouldn't work, right? I would probably still be working behind a desk or doing something that I really didn't like. I also am very, I don't want to say like daring, but I would definitely say I have wanderlust. So my mom always says this about me. I'm always curious. What's the next level? I think that that's just how I am as a person, and I like it. It's not changing.
and I think that's also what has made you so successul in business, right? Because you have to have that.
Yes, 100%. You have to be curious. You have to have a little bit of, risk taking in you. Yeah. So I definitely am a risk taker.
Yeah. And you have to be.
Yes.
And Krista, I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, I feel like I could keep talking to you. We're getting a little short on time. So I'm going to go to like one or two more questions, but I mean, it's just, if you want another side hustle or another business, podcast host, I think is up there. I said this to my guest before, one of my friends before. I'm like, it's such a natural conversation. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, gosh, we've been talking for so long, but I feel like we've covered so much.
Yes.
So let me look through the card of questions here and see if there's anything else that we haven't really talked about. Let's see. There's one question here I wanted to make sure. Oh, yes. What is it about? Okay, so what's something that people assume about entrepreneurs that just isn't true?
What's something that people, let me think about this.
It's a fun question.
Well, I think a lot of people would assume if you're an entrepreneur that you came from some kind of money. You came from some type of leverage, or somebody helped you with something like, oh, you're an entrepreneur, so somebody set you up, or somebody plugged you in somewhere, or somebody gave you money to back you. Not the case. Not the case. I use money from my 401k.
Yeah. Wow.
Went from my old job to start a business, and it was a risk. I was like, it's this or nothing.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have, I would say, that much of familial support. My parents weren't like, yeah, go get them. They were a little nervous. They were like, wow, you're leaving a really great job in corporate America and you're kind of going to do something that's a little risky. What if this doesn't work out? And I kind of was just like, it's going to work out. That's it.
Yeah. You believed in yourself.
Yep.
That's where the self-worth and self-confidence comes in. You believed in yourself. You're right. You took a risk, but you took a calculated risk.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So, not all entrepreneurs have a hand up, or nobody was helping me with anything.
And that's a good reminder, right? Because they talk about people who are self-made.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they talk about celebrities who are self-made. And I'm not going to name names.
Yeah.
But, there are celebrities who have been self-made. And it's like, well, no, because if your father is a bazillionaire, like... billionaire, but bazillionaire is a more fun word. But if if your father or mother are wealthy, you're not really self-made at that point.
And even if they didn't give you money, they gave you experience.
Yes.
So you probably went to way better schools. You probably were surrounded by a different level of networking. Yep. Your, neighbors probably were something different. It's definitely different. I grew up in your regular, middle class household. My mom's, parents, my dad's parents, their grandparents were born in Italy. So this was not people coming here, handing me out money to do something. I, went to New York City public schools. This was nothing that I tell my team that all the time. I'm like, I did not come from money. A lot of the everyday struggles that you have, trust me, I get it. I know.
You've been there too. And I love what you say, because I grew up pretty well, like from a, good family, but I've still been unemployed, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like I was able to avoid that, right? And of course, I think the one thing, and I remember I had a former boss who told me something to the effect of, okay, well, I know, my position was being eliminated. And she said something to the effect of like, some people come in here, I really worry about them. You're fine. You're fine. You come from, some level of money from your parents, not by me, mind you. And I just remember thinking that's such a silly thing to say, because I was in my 30s. I don't want to be unemployed. Yeah. And it's not like I, yes, I knew I wouldn't be homeless, thank God. And I think that's what she meant to say. But it's still kind of a mean thing to say. It's kind of a cruel thing to say, because I still had to go through the job process, the job search process. I still had to do all the things. It's not like I was like, okay, I'm retiring. Like, it just is an ignorant thing to say.
Yeah.
And I understand the sentiment, but yes, there is definitely, most of us still would need to work if something happened to our jobs, right? Yes. And I think there's such a core difference between that and somebody who has truly been born with the silver spoon, who truly will be fine if he or she never works again.
Yeah, big difference.
Big difference. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Krista, I think we're going to have time for one more question.
Okay.
So I love this question. It was the last one that I sent to you. If your son, Sal, right, if he watches this episode probably a few years from now, I know he's still a little young, but what do you hope that he learns?
One, that his mom is cool. No. I hope that he learns that I am a regular person like everybody else. That's a big thing in the household too. I'm not special, right? He thinks I'm special because I'm mom, but I'm a regular person who definitely has highs and lows. I try to keep it to where he doesn't know when there's lows happening. So, he lives a very good life, but, mommy really works hard to make sure that he has a life like that and kind of shield him from anything while he's little that he doesn't need to be exposed to. But, I'm regular. I'm like everybody else. I'm not the superstar that he sees in his eyes. I'm still somebody's employer. I'm still, going into work all the time and checking everything. And
I love that. I love that. Okay. So, Krista, where can people find you? So for anyone listening or watching who wants to reach out to you, maybe take you up on the divorce side business that you may start. So how can they find you?
Best way to find me, email. So you can reach me at JNK JNKLogistics1@gmail.com. That's why.
And I'll put that on the screen
Yep.
for those that are watching. Krista, this has been fabulous.
This is so much fun.
I know, it just flew by.
Yes,
I'm like, I feel like
love
we could
it.
keep talking,
Yes.
but you are wonderful.
Thank you.
Keep doing the great work and keep balancing it all with a kid, with the dogs, with a partner, with a business.
Thank you.
And hopefully I can have you back on the podcast at some point.
Would love it.
Follow up, but this really has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
Thank you for again being so candid and sharing all your experiences with me and everyone watching and listening.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to leave everyone with this as I always do. So thank you again for everyone watching or listening. I truly appreciate every single ounce of support that I've been getting for this podcast. And please remember that the most unglamorous moments in life are usually where the real story begins. So again, Unglamorous in the City with Smith Oral, my friend Krista. You guys take care.
Bye.